Chapter 1081 Overpowering the 10 strongest with brute strength at the spot in the center of the 9 continents on the first plane used for the anointment ceremony in Morning Dao sect. A piercing light instantly appeared amid the buzzing sounds and uproars in the area once Kai Lingwei left Su Ming's platform. In that light was a person, and he took a large step forward. With a bang, he stepped onto the platform, revealing his large and bulky figure as well as a powerful mighty pressure. Han Ta, Mountain Arriver. Your Highness, please grant me your teachings, he said in a muffled voice that sounded like a roar. The man's eyes were wide open, as if he was angry. He had a ferocious appearance that exuded a fierce air, and when he spoke to Su Ming, his voice was as loud as thunder. Han Ta, even he came. This fight will definitely be interesting. He's one of the top 10 most powerful warriors in the last 10,000 years. Even though he's only ranked 10th, that ranking was not created by Morning Dao sect. It's based on the bounty arranged by Immortals Union. Its authenticity is pretty self-evident. That's right, I heard that Han Ta is also ranked 10th in the War Achievement Ranking Board in Morning Dao sect. Discussions spread through the area around the platform, and Su Ming cast a glance at the man before him. Without his knowledge, a hint of nostalgia appeared on his face. As he stared at the man, he remembered his third senior brother. Hu Zi was also like this man. He was an honest and straightforward person, but also ferocious. Hu Zi, where are you? Su Ming shook his head. A ferocious smile appeared on the man's lips. He was very confident, because he knew that whenever he smiled that way, he would deliver a certain amount of intimidation to others. At that moment, as he smiled in that ferocious manner, he lifted his foot and took a swift step toward Su Ming. When he raised his right hand, he threw a punch, stirring up a loud bang. He was in Mastery Realm and had mastered the divine ability known as Unmoving. With the idea of using the pinnacle of physical power to make the universe tremble, he would attack with physical power. A loud bang shot into the air, and the punch seemed to slice through the air, tearing apart a large crack in the air while it swept toward Su Ming. If Hu Zi saw someone so similar to him, he'd definitely be very happy. Su Ming smiled and also took a step forward. With only physical power as well, he threw a punch forward. When his fist collided with that of the man, a loud bang shot up. The man staggered a few steps back. Su Ming also moved a step back. Blood trickled out of the corners of his mouth. That blood was not because of the man, but due to the injuries Su Ming had sustained in the striking lands. When the man was forced back, his qi and blood started surging violently due to the tremor from the clash. His body was unable to move even a single inch during that instant. Su Ming wiped off the blood at the corners of his lips. He then cast a glance at the screen of light covering the lotus platform. With a flash in his eyes, a ray of black light shone around his body and left it with a loud whoosh. That black light was the light of extreme darkness, and at the instant it crashed against the screen of light around him, it distorted before it shattered with a bang, causing everything on the platform to be revealed clearly to those in the area outside. How many other challengers are there? Come to me, all of you. You aren't my opponent if you challenge me alone. Su Ming's voice immediately left the lotus platform and echoed in all the cultivators' ears. After a short period of silence, long arcs immediately shot out from the crowd. There were 7 in total, and they were all using an extreme speed to charge towards Su Ming's platform. 2 of the 7 were women while the rest were men. The oldest had a head full of white, and the youngest was a bald boy. As the 7 people charged forward, the power that erupted from their bodies showed clearly that all of them were in Mastery Realm. The appearance of those people immediately stirred up a powerful uproar and a loud rumble among the cultivators in the area. It's those 7. 8 among the 10 strongest have appeared. Besides Dao Xianxia, who is ranked 1st and has yet to return from beyond the true world, and Ding Xiao, who is ranked 2nd and who was taken by the war chamber to defend our world, all of the 10 strongest in Morning Dao sect have appeared. After this battle, there will no longer be any challengers. All those that have a hint of reason in their minds would definitely not challenge Dynast Dao Kong again. But Dynast Dao Kong will definitely lose this battle. He's 1 up against 8. No matter how high his level of cultivation is, it's useless. Dynast Dao Kong is a little too arrogant. But even if he fails, he has already shocked everyone earlier. His fame will only be second to that of Dao Xianyi and Ding Juxiao. All the 7 people were ranked among the 10 strongest. They had intended to fight Su Ming one after another, not because they fancied the status of a dynast, but because they wanted to test his power, and at the same time, they also wanted to test their own power. At that moment, after they heard Su Ming's words, the 7 of them hesitated for a moment before rising up. They instantly turned into long arcs and closed in on his lotus platform. When they landed, they stood beside the man whose gaze was extremely solemn and whose qi and blood had only just recovered. "Your Highness, please grant us your teachings." With solemn expressions, the 7 wrapped their fists in their palms and bowed towards Su Ming. Almost at the moment they did so, the man similar to Hu Zi let out a low growl. When he leaped up, he threw a punch at Su Ming again. When he did so, his body shuddered. His aura and essence erupted and reached their peak during that moment. His veins popped up. Cracking sounds gathered on his palm, and when he threw his punch forward, the shadow of a gigantic fist appeared in front of him. At the same time, the bald boy took a few steps back. His eyes shone swiftly, and immediately, 2 more pupils appeared in his pupils. Waves of dark light flashed within them, and in his gaze, countless threads appeared on the lotus platform. Those threads were formed by laws. When they landed in his eyes, he raised his hands and swiftly started manipulating the air around him, changing the laws in the area. Because of that, Su Ming immediately noticed a power rejecting him. It was as if his existence did not fit with the area and the universe during that instant. Soon after, a man and a woman moved and disappeared without a trace. When they appeared again, they were already on Su Ming's sides. The cultivation method the 2 of them practiced was clearly the same. Their bodies became vague, as if they were existences caught between reality and illusions. It allowed them to avoid most divine abilities, and coupled with their powerful might, plenty of powerful cultivators had died in their hands when they fought against the Immortals' Union. The old man swung his arm. Immediately, a 5-colored light appeared. When nearly 100 rays shined, they turned into a large number of enchanted treasures, as if there would be no end to them. Once they appeared, a powerful, sharp presence spread out from them, and all of them charged towards Su Ming. The second woman let out a piercing roar. She then split into nearly 100 copies of herself. They surrounded the lotus platform and let out shrill screams simultaneously. It sounded as if there were voices shouting non-stop in the area, and the hearts of all who heard them suffered sharp stabs of pain. The audience even grew dizzy. One of the other 2 remaining people took a step forward, and with a loud bang, his body swelled up. He became much bulkier and turned into a giant of 100 feet. He took a step forward with Han Ta and rushed towards Su Ming. The last one was dressed in a large, long robe. At that moment, his robe shone. With a loud buzz, a large number of centipedes with wings flew out from within it. Those centipedes let out hissing sounds and rushed to Su Ming as they covered the sky and earth. The 8 people attacked at the same time, and their monstrous presences surged into the air. Su Ming threw his head back and laughed. Those in Mastery Realm have reached the pinnacle of physical power. Besides these 2, the 6 of you have all walked down the wrong path. You reached Mastery Realm, but you still treat yourselves as cultivators. I will only need 8 strikes to defeat all of you. Su Ming took a step forward to face off against the giant that was Han Ta, since he had been the first to arrive in front of him. At the instant he closed in, Su Ming formed his fists and threw 2 punches forward at the same time. Booming sounds reverberated in the air, and Han Ta coughed up blood. His body tumbled backwards, and the giant fist in front of him shattered. The giant beside him shuddered. As he was sent backwards as well, his gigantic body was torn into pieces and returned to its original form. The man then coughed up blood. Su Ming did not stop. He simply allowed the laws in the area to turn into threads to surround him before throwing a punch into the air with his right hand. The air instantly shuddered and all the threads were shattered. The pinnacle of power can shake the universe and shatter space itself, much less laws. The instant Su Ming said those words and his punch landed, not only did he shatter the threads of laws, he also shattered the boy's pupils. The youth trembled, and blood flowed out of his eyes. He coughed up blood and tumbled backwards. At the same time, Su Ming looked to the right and left, from where the man and woman wanted to attack him. He stretched out his arms and threw a punch in each direction. Ripples spread out, and the two were forced out of being between the state of real and an illusion. They fell back in shock. "And you?" Su Ming looked towards the person who had released a large number of poisonous centipedes. He clenched his right hand. With a loud bang, a violent gust of wind stirred up. It swept through all directions, and all the centipedes let out terrified screeches. The person who had released them coughed up blood and took a few steps back. "You too." When Su Ming turned around, he seized the air with his right hand, then with another punch, all the enchanted treasures which were charging towards him shattered with a bang. Blood then trickled down the lip of the old man who had brought them out, and he immediately retreated. "You're the last." Su Ming raised his right hand, then punched the platform. A loud bang shot up, and a large wave swept outwards through the area from the spot where the fist landed, immediately pushing back the hundreds of clones belonging to the woman who had split herself up before they dissipated to reveal her real body in the distance. She coughed up blood and fell back. "Not enough, again." Su Ming laughed at the sky, and blood trickled down the corners of his lips due to his movements tearing at his injuries, but a powerful desire to fight shone in his eyes. An unprecedented solemn expression appeared on the 8 people's faces. They cast each other a glance before rushing at Su Ming again. As they fought, a relocation rune shone on a continent in the 3rd plane. The old man who had returned from the barren lands of divine essence walked out from it. With a pale face, he rushed to the 1st plane with an anxious expression. He wanted to tell what he'd learned to the sect masters. The news had shocked him to no end when he'd learned about what had happened. If he was not absolutely certain of it, he would not have believed that Dynast Dao Kong had stirred up such a shocking storm in divine essence Star Ocean. When he remembered that the sect master who had asked him to head to the barren lands of divine essence seemed to harbor some animosity towards Dynast Dao Kong, the old man's heart trembled. Even if he had to offend that sect master, he would absolutely not offend that Dao Kong even a single bit. Chapter 1082 Just Say I Bang. The 8 people attacked simultaneously, and the power belonging to 8 almighties in Mastery Realm erupted from them. If Su Ming was at the peak of his condition, perhaps he could have fought against such forces, but he was injured now, so it only natural that this fight would be difficult for him. However, this was before he had learned the Mountain Shifter, the God Slayer art, and the Bald Crane had mastered the light of extreme darkness. With these things, even if he was injured, he would still be able to fight with ease even when faced with the 8 people while injured. Amid the loud bangs, Su Ming coughed up a mouthful of blood, but the price of it was that the 8 powerful warriors around him coughed up blood as well. In retreat, they felt as if they could not control their qi and the blood tumbling in their bodies. It was especially so for the 2 who had just entered Mastery Realm. They could only be considered at the initial stage, and when they were forced back while coughing up blood, they could no longer suppress their qi and blood from spreading out through their pores. They were heavily wounded and swept out of the lotus platform. Su Ming wiped off the blood at the corners of his mouth. He then raised his right hand to seize the air, and the life inequity spear manifested. In an instant, it was covered by a layer of golden light, which was the sign of the God Slayer art which Su Ming had learned. Again. Su Ming laughed at the sky. As he spoke, fighting spirit rose in the remaining 6 fighters. They moved together and activated their strongest divine abilities. At the instant they charged forward and closed in, Su Ming lifted his right foot and took a step forward. He raised the life inequity spear in his hand and thrust downwards in a very simple fashion. If anyone compared the long spear to a great sword, then his thrust would have been equivalent to a sword slash. At the instant he used it, the laws in the area changed. This transformation immediately caused the lotus platform and the entire world around them to become separated, turning their area into a completely different region compared to the world around them. This was the power to cut down laws. Cutting down the connection between the platform and the world around it was equivalent to cutting down the faint connections of the 6 people's cultivation bases to the world around them. This form of interfering with fate was the same as blocking off the flow of a sea, killing it off in that way. It made it difficult for the 6 people to borrow any shred of power from the world, as if Su Ming had sealed off their source. At the same time, the 6 cultivators discovered that when the spear went downwards, it not only cut off their fates, but also played with their senses. Even though it looked like the spear was going downwards, it seemed like it extended before splitting into 6 parts that landed on their hands. It was as if no matter how many people were in the area, as long as the spear fell, it would definitely hit all of them. Boom! The instant the 6 people's divine abilities collided against Su Ming's spear, he shuddered and staggered a few steps back. He coughed up a mouthful of blood, but 2 of the 6 coughed up blood too and were swept backwards. Once they were flung out of the lotus platform, thick blood fog spread out from them. It looked like their whole bodies had erupted with wounds. Soon after, 2 of the remaining 4 people on the lotus platform could no longer withstand the falling spear. As their chi surged intensely in their bodies, they were flung out as well. With one swing of the spear, 4 of the 6 lost their ability to fight. The remaining 2 people had turned pale. When they looked at Su Ming, their gazes were filled with indescribable shock. At the instant the 2 hesitated on whether they wanted to continue fighting, black light surged into the sky from Su Ming's body before it swinging outwards. Light of extreme darkness. That's the light of extreme darkness. The 10 million cultivators in the area immediately let out surprised cries. After all, when Su Ming had used it previously, it was to destroy the screen of light around him. When the screen crumbled, the light of extreme darkness had already dissipated, which was why those beyond the platform could not see it. But now, without the screen, the audience could see what was happening on the lotus platform clearly, and the light spreading out from Su Ming's body was incredibly piercing to the eyes. All those who saw it immediately trembled. They were outside and already reacting like that, so it was even more so for the 2 of the 10 strongest remaining on the lotus platform at that moment. Almost the instant Su Ming swept out the light of extreme darkness, the 2 people started trembling. They stood there, feeling as if they had been frozen. If it was to last for much longer, then they would definitely be injured heavily under the light of extreme darkness, and their minds would be destroyed. In fact, even their souls would sink into eternal slumber from which they could never wake up. The shadow of death landed on their bodies, but they were powerless to fight against it. The instant their souls were about to fall into eternal slumber, the light of extreme darkness disappeared. "I will spare you," Su Ming said with aloofness. The 2 people on the lotus platform immediately trembled. Their bodies swiftly recovered, but their faces stayed pale. They wrapped their fists in their palms and bowed to Su Ming before turning around and leaving in a hurry. Su Ming's figure had already turned into an incomparably powerful and invincible existence in their minds. This shadow was like a seed that would prevent them from surpassing Su Ming for the rest of their lives. With the fight of 1 against 8, Su Ming's name shook all the cultivators in the area. When standing on the lotus platform, he looked like a war immortal at that moment. This image turned into a brand that could not be wiped off the minds of the cultivators in Morning Dao sect. Su Ming's face while he held the long spear was somewhat pale. He was injured to begin with, and after fighting against the 8 people, his injuries became worse. It looked as if he could not even stand firmly on his feet, but he did not care about it. He swept his gaze across the crowd, then cast a glance at Bei Bang. When Su Ming was about to open his mouth to speak, one of the other 9 dynasts shouted out loudly, not giving him a chance to voice anything. "Dao Kong, I want to challenge you." Once he said that, all the other dynasts focused on them. "Dao Kong, do you dare receive my challenge?" "That's right, Dao Kong, since you're so ostentatious and can fight against 8 of the 10 strongest in Morning Dao sect, do you dare to fight against us now?" As their voices rang in the air, 4 of the direct descendants leapt up and charged toward Su Ming's lotus platform, intending to kill him in one go while he was badly injured. Bei Bang should have stopped them, but his eyes flashed with light, and he kept quiet, as if he did not see anything. Besides the tanned old man, the other 2 sect masters frowned, but when they saw that Bei Bang had turned a blind eye, they cast each other a glance and hesitated. The tanned old man laughed coldly in his heart. This was something that he wanted to see very much. A glint appeared in his eyes, and in a seemingly casual manner, he cast a glance at the gentle-looking middle-aged man, Dao Fa, who was among the 9 dynasts. Dao Fa was silent for a moment, then took a step forward. "Dao Kong, do you dare fight against me?" When his word rang in the air, he derided himself. Doing something like this did not fit his personality, but Dao Kong was too strong. Someone as strong as this was a dynast, and this created an incredibly great threat to him. The moment Dao Fa took a step forward, a glint appeared in Dao Lin's aloof eyes, and he too leapt forward. The other dynasts followed suit. All the other 9 great dynasts wanted to fight against Su Ming at the same time. This scene instantly caused various expressions to appear on the cultivators' faces. Some were scornful, some excited as if they were about to see something entertaining, and some were frowning, thinking that this was incredibly inappropriate. With all sorts of thoughts in their heads, the buzz of discussions immediately rolled through the crowd. While standing on the lotus platform, Su Ming watched the 9 great dynasts charging toward him with a hint of derision on their lips. He tightened his grip on the life inequity spear, and sharp stabs of pain traveled through his body. It was the sign that his injuries were acting up. Yet even so, if Su Ming wanted to, he had the confidence to kill all 9 of them in one go. But when he tightened his grip over the life inequity spear and the 9 dynasts were about to reach him, an incredibly loud sound of air being torn apart suddenly came from the distant sky. This was a sound of a person charging forth at full speed while slicing apart the sky. It was a piercing howl, and it closed in on them in seconds. The person in such a rush was an old man, the person who had returned from the barren lands of divine essence. He was charging forth incredibly quickly with a disconcerted expression on his face. At the instant he closed in, he was instantly recognized by the tanned old man who had been waiting for him all this while. The tanned old man saw his expression, and a smile immediately appeared on his face. To him, this was the expression of someone who had discovered something incredibly great in the barren lands of divine essence. This matter was surely the secret behind Dao Kong's level of cultivation increasing by leaps and bounds. Since the man was so terrified, it was definitely not something ordinary. The incoming long arc did not catch too much attention at first, but the person in it swiftly charged to the tanned old man. Before even closing in, he began to speak in an anxious voice. "I have something to tell you, sect master." As his voice echoed in the air, Bei Bang frowned. When he was about to say something, the tanned old man behind him laughed loudly and took a step forward. Dao Kong was still in the middle stage of world plane realm more than 1,000 years ago, but after he returned from the barren lands of divine essence, he had become incredibly strong. This is a great fortune for Morning Dao sect, but I'm curious, just what did he go through to become so powerful and obtain this level of cultivation? I sent someone to the barren lands of divine essence to find exactly that, and now that person has returned. I'm not privy to the information he brought back yet because I wanted to listen to it with everyone. Just what sort of serendipity did Dynast Dao Kong receive in the barren lands of divine essence? The tanned old man's words were incredibly sinister. The instant he voiced them, he stirred up a lot of attention from the cultivators in the area. In truth, they had long since been puzzled about this, and even those who had not been wondering about it swiftly registered what was going on. That's right. What sort of thing could have made Dynast Dao Kong so strong? Yeah, could it be possession? Else, why would his level of cultivation increase by so much in just around 1,000 years? If it's really some sort of serendipity, then perhaps we can try obtaining it as well. After all, now that I think about it, rising our level of cultivation by so much is something that is unimaginable. Bei Bang's eyes sparkled, and he did not stop the old man. He too wanted to hear just what Dao Kong had experienced in the barren lands of divine essence. Sect Master. The old man in the long arc felt his heart tremble at that moment, and the perturbed, anxious look on his face became even more apparent. His expression caused the tanned old man to feel a hint of uneasiness, but things had already progressed too far, and he believed in his own judgment. With eyes shining, he said resolutely, "Just say it." Chapter 1083 Legend. Those words caused even the 9 dynasts who had arrived on Su Ming's platform to take a few steps back and look toward the person who had returned from the barren lands of divine essence. If this person's words could stir up a large storm, then to them, this would naturally be for the best. Because of it, perhaps Dao Kong's right as a dynast could be cancelled, and just like that, a person who posed a threat to them due to possessing the same status would be gone. The fewer threats there were, the better everyone would feel. After all, the road from a dynast to the master of true Morning Dao world was filled with trials. The 9 people might be dynasts, but in truth, there were 3 hidden dynasts behind the 10 great dynasts. Those 3 had fathomless power, and it was said that each of them was a master of fate, lives, and death, but it was a pity that no one knew who they were. However, based on the rules of Morning Dao sect, when the 10 great dynasts appeared, 3 hidden dynasts would definitely be appointed. However, the hidden dynasts also had their limitations. They could not open their own chambers and spread their influence. Because of that, a sort of equilibrium was formed. The reason the 9 dynasts treated Su Ming as a great threat was because he had the right to become a dynast, but also the power of a hidden dynast. This sort of existence was incredibly threatening to them. Because of that, they believed that as long as they stripped off Su Ming of his dynast status, he could do nothing even if he had great power. A dynast never had to practice cultivation in the first place. What they needed was a large number of powerful warriors serving as their followers and the ability to bring more people to their side, resulting a force to be reckoned with. As long as their people brought them to greatness, no matter how strong someone was, they would definitely submit to them. This was something the 9 believed wholeheartedly. Under their expectant gazes, the divine senses from the cultivators in the area, the great interest which had arisen in the old Bei Bang, and the tanned old man's expression of slight hesitation mixed with trust in his own judgment, the expression of the person who had returned from the barren lands of divine essence immediately changed. He felt as if he had a tiger by its tail. Instinctively, he did not look towards the tanned old man nor Bei Bang, who appeared to have the greatest level of cultivation in the area. Instead, he looked towards Su Ming. His gaze was filled with reverence and great anxiety. Su Ming's expressionless face caused his heart to tremble. He had a strong feeling that he should rather offend that tanned sect master but not Su Ming. Most of the 10 million people in the area did not see this gaze, but the 9 dynasts on Su Ming's platform could see it clearly. Bei Bang could also see it, and the one who saw it the clearest was the tanned old man. At the instant he saw the respect in his man's gaze, his heart let out a loud thump, and the feeling that something bad was about to happen became incomparably strong. Wait. This time, he spoke without hesitation. But the moment he started, a resolute expression surfaced on the face of the person who had returned from the barren lands of divine essence. He understood well what he had to do at that moment. Since the tanned old man wanted him to say it, he would say it. Many days ago, I was sent by a sect master to the barren lands of divine essence. He did not bother with the tanned old man's words. When he spoke, he instantly attracted all the cultivators' attention. I was sent to the barren lands of divine essence to investigate all the things Dynast Dao Kong had experienced while he was there, to find the source for His Highness' sudden increase in power. This was the task I was given, and I had no right to reject it. I could only listen to his orders, so I hope that you will not punish me for it, Your Highness. As he spoke, he wrapped his fist in his palm and bowed deeply to Su Ming. His expression was filled with respect, and there was even fear in it. This scene instantly caused an uproar among the crowd. Everyone began to listen even more attentively, and a strong wave of curiosity had already stirred up in their hearts. Once I went to the barren lands of divine essence, I did not head to the camp where the forces of power from true Morning Dao world were stationed to investigate this matter. Instead, I went to some of my good friends in the other true worlds which I had befriended while I was a true guard to understand this matter from another point of view. I even coincidentally ran into some fellow Taoists with whom I was good friends with in the past. Through an investigation conducted from various points of view, I might have still been unable to investigate all that Dynast Dao Kong went through in the barren lands of divine essence, but I did manage to find out about 3 or 4/10 of it. When Dynast Dao Kong entered the barren lands of divine essence, he kept a low profile and did not shine too brightly. His legend started during a great auction held in Black Ink Planet. While he was there, Dynast Dao Kong bought a sacred constellation robe and started a grand quest that shocks me even now. His Highness went to Divine Essence Star Ocean and went through dangerous trials while he was there. Perhaps you do not understand Divine Essence Star Ocean too well, but I can tell all of you that it is a place filled with serendipities. It is a place where ancient ancestral spirits sleep. In fact, there are still living ancestral spirits, antecedental spirits, and plenty of ancient, primitive tribes over there. Everything is possible in Divine Essence Star Ocean, which is filled with legendary creatures. Forget His Highness' level of cultivation increasing by leaps and bounds, it wouldn't have been impossible for him to become one of the strongest in one step. Only in that sort of environment can a person truly grow, and only in that place can an ordinary piece of metal be turned into a sharp sword. I do not know exactly what His Highness went through while he was in Divine Essence Star Ocean, only He alone would, but I'm certain that it was definitely not something an ordinary person would be able to live through. There are things there from which even sect masters would die. I also know that Dynast Dao Kong took part in the activation of the fifth kill. The fifth kill is one of the most mysterious places in Divine Essence Star Ocean. Each time it is activated, a sea of fire is stirred up and sweeps through the entire Divine Essence Star Ocean. Perhaps some of you do not understand the might of the fifth kill, but I can tell all of you that its fire can instantly burn all cultivators under Mastery Realm. In fact, even those in Mastery Realm that do not have enough enchanted treasures would find it hard to last long in the sea of fire. The old man's respectful words reverberated in all directions, and a loud wave of discussions was immediately stirred up. An uproar from 10 million cultivators arose, and all of them had shocked expressions due to the old man's words. Some of the people had heard of Divine Essence Star Ocean before and naturally knew why it was so terrifying. They had heard about the fifth kill before as well, and understood what facing it meant. In fact, there were even some of them who had been true guards in the past. The old man's words caused them to fall silent. They knew far more than the others, but exactly because of that, their respect for Su Ming grew even more. It had in fact reached an unprecedented manner. There were many more who had heard about those things for the first time, but they knew the old man and that he would definitely not lie. Besides, there were few among them who were foolish and couldn't determine whether the old man's words were real or not. Dynast Dao Kong entered the fifth kill when it was activated, and even the weakest among the ones who joined him was in Mastery Realm. While he was with them, amid the numerous dangers, Dynast Dao Kong obtained a great serendipity that had never been known to man before. He also obtained his followers while he was there. His words echoed in the air. The commotion in the area instantly became even stronger, and when the people cried out, their voices were filled with astonishment that spoke of them finding themselves in disbelief. Bei Bang's pupils shrank. When he whipped his head around to look toward Su Ming, what entered his line of sight was the other's indifferent expression. The tanned old man had already become expressionless. He glared at the old man who had returned from the barren lands of Divine Essence, and powerful killing intent rose in his heart. The expressions of the 9 dynasts on Su Ming's platform changed, and they took a few steps back simultaneously. This is nothing. There is one rumor discussed animatedly in the barren lands of Divine Essence right now. It is about Sir Wu, who doesn't belong to any of the true worlds, but who has attached himself to the forces of power from the 4 great true worlds stationed in the barren lands of Divine Essence. This person is an almighty in Mastery Realm, and he also entered the fifth kill when it was activated. The rumors are saying that this person has yet to return because he was fighting over treasure with Dynast Dao Kong, and was then personally killed him. His physical body has become the body of his follower, Flame Fiend's progenitor. At the instant the old man said those words, the uproar in the area became so strong that only loud, booming sounds could be heard. Bei Bang's eyes shone. He did not speak, but the tanned old man behind him let out a cold harumph, and with a voice like thunder, he instantly drowned out the waves of sound in the area. Nonsense. I've heard of Sir Wu before. He has a strange bloodline, and when he transforms, he becomes incredibly powerful. There is no way he could be killed so easily. Who did you hear this from? How could you treat rumors as if they were real? If you continue telling us things that are mere gossip, do not blame me for punishing you, the tanned old man said with harshness. What if this was told to me personally by progenitor Long Hai? The old man who returned from the barren lands of Divine Essence asked without hesitation. He was ready to risk everything. Once he spoke, the uproar in the area which had been drowned out rose with a vengeance, and it instantly became so strong that the voices seemed endless. The tanned old man's expression changed, and he was rendered speechless. Progenitor Long Hai is the Almighty from Morning Dao sect who has gone missing for years. I heard about this progenitor before. It's said that he has long since arrived at the state of an Almighty and has a great reputation in true Morning Dao world. I didn't expect that he'd be in the barren lands of Divine Essence. Progenitor Long Hai, if the old man is the one who said it, then those words are believable. As voices in the area formed into incomprehensible noise, the old man who had returned from the barren lands of divine essence opened his mouth again and uttered the most shocking words since the start. When Dynas Dao Kong ventured out of the fifth kill, he also went to the fifth ocean. While he was there, His Highness was attacked by various tribes and surrounded by ferocious beasts. The old man jolted, and as he trembled, his eyes were filled with fear. When he was there, one of His Highness' followers only executed one divine ability before he destroyed tens of thousands of cultivators. Some of them were almighties in Mastery Realm, and their numbers were impossible to count. It is said that His Highness' follower is an almighty in Life Realm who has nearly stepped into Death Realm. As the old man's words echoed, the entire area fell into dead silence. Soon though, a loud boom erupted from the crowd, formed from countless cries of surprise fusing together into a wave of sound that surged into the heavens. Chapter 1084. That person is Dynas Dao Kong. What a load of nonsense! The tanned old man laughed coldly, then swung his arm as he stared at the person who came back from the barren lands of divine essence while speaking in an aloof manner. Forget what sort of followers Dynas Dao Kong has. How could it be possible that a powerful almighty like would be willing to become a servant? This is obviously just a rumor. This is the most absurd joke I've ever heard. I didn't ask you to go to the barren lands of divine essence to bring back all the absurd rumors there. Are you as gullible as a 3-year-old child now? I'd like to know who you heard it from this time. Could it still be that progenitor Long Hai? The tanned old man absolutely did not believe that Su Ming could have such an almighty as his follower. As he spoke, a hint of derision appeared on his face. If progenitor Long Hai was still the one who said those words, then the tanned old man could have his say in this. After all, even if Long Hai's words were believable and understandable, with his level of cultivation, as long as it involved almighty's near-death realm, his status would not be enough to say such things. Even the old Bei Bang frowned, thinking that this rumor was too over the top. He was himself an almighty in Life Realm, and he had always stood on top of the others. With how he prided himself in his level of cultivation, he could not imagine himself or a powerful warrior who was even stronger to willingly become Dao Kong's follower. Even if Dao Kong had extraordinary power and could fight against 8 almighties in Mastery Realm, to Bei Bang, this was still not enough for an almighty in Life Realm to become his follower. It was just as the tanned old man had said, it was the most absurd joke he'd ever heard. He was not the only one who thought like this. Practically all the people in the area, the 10 million cultivators and the dynasty, had great doubt in regards to those words. They did not believe them. That's impossible. Even if Dynas Dao Kong's level of cultivation is exceedingly high, this is still impossible. That's right. A person nearly in Death Realm is of incredibly noble status. No matter to which true world they went, they would be in existence akin to someone who could touch the heavens. With one stomp, they could make the universe change. How could someone like that become someone else's follower? It's definitely just a rumor. Looks like we truly can't believe him easily. These rumors are too exaggerated. The buzz of discussions reverberated in the air. Voices of doubt spread, but Su Ming's expression remained as calm as ever, as if none of the things said had anything to do with him. He only cast a profound look at the person who came back from the barren lands of divine essence. This person had managed to dig out information to this extent in such a short amount of time, which showed just how far-reaching were his connections in the barren lands of divine essence. At the same time, it also allowed Su Ming to tell that this person's ability to handle affairs, especially in terms of searching for information, were much stronger than those of other people. I suppose you can also consider this a talented person. A barely noticeable glint appeared in Su Ming's eyes. The expression of the old man who had returned from the barren lands of divine essence turned dark when he was faced with the doubts and distrust from the 10 million people in the area. He listened to the buzz by his ears and stared at the cold sneer as well as the contempt on the tanned old man's face. He remained silent for a moment. When the discussions around him grew even louder, the old man who had returned from the barren lands of divine essence calmly and slowly opened his mouth to utter a sentence that instantly caused the land to fall into dead silence once again. What if this was personally told by Reverend Zi Long from the fourth true world? As the area fell silent, the tanned old man's expression instantly changed. His breathing even quickened. He hadn't expected that the one who said those words would be the incredibly famous Reverend Zilong of the Fourth True World. This person was really famous in the Fourth True World. He was half a step into Fate Realm, and along with the Fourth True World's uniqueness and mystery, he had a great reputation in the other three Great True Worlds. Also, he was the representative from the Fourth True World who was sent to Morning Dao sect to partake in witnessing the anointing of the dynasts. He was bringing a group of people from the Fourth True World and would arrive in true Morning Dao world in a short while. Are you certain that these words were spoken by Zilong? Bei Bang's expression swiftly turned stern. He stared at the old man who had returned from the barren lands of divine essence while he enunciated every single word in his question clearly and slowly. Sect Master, if you see Reverend Zilong, then you will know whether this is true or false when you ask him. There is no need for me to lie about this. Once the old man who had returned from the barren lands of divine essence spoke with resolution, the silence in the area was immediately broken by an uproar. Discussions of disbelieving as well as shocked voices spread out. The tanned old man had an incredibly sullen expression. As for Bei Bang, he turned around to look at Su Ming, who was still standing on his lotus platform. Su Ming's face was still as pale as before, but he stood in a relaxed, calm, and indifferent manner. Not a single hint of change in emotion could be detected on his face, but the more he acted this way, the more fathomless he seemed. What is the name of your follower? Perhaps he is an old friend of mine, Bei Bang said in an unhurried manner after a moment of silence. This was the first time he took the initiative to speak to Su Ming. In truth, under his seemingly calm appearance, there was a huge storm raging in his heart. Each word of the person who had returned from the barren lands of divine essence was more shocking than the last, causing all the people in the area, including himself, to be unable to help themselves but feel a sense of disbelief amid their shock. Su Ming toyed with a life inequity spear in his hand. When he heard the words aimed at him, he smiled and said flatly, "Let him continue. I believe that he is yet to finish speaking. It would be best if we let him finish telling us everything in one go." Su Ming's smile was flat, but when everyone saw it, they felt as if there was an incredibly malicious air contained within it. It was something that they felt but could not put to words. Bei Bang narrowed his eyes. He immediately had a feeling that something bad was about to happen. The tanned old man's heart thumped against his chest while the 10 million cultivators in the area immediately stood up to attention. They had a vague feeling that the person who had returned from the barren lands of divine essence had indeed not finished speaking. They were especially certain of it when they saw the old man who had returned from the barren lands of divine essence shudder instinctively. He had clearly remembered a matter that could stir up a huge storm. It was what caused him to be in a constant state of fear and had even pushed him to make a decision to never provoke Dao Kong. It did not matter whether it was his act of entering the activated fifth kill, killing Sir Wu, or having an almighty who was nearly in death realm. When compared to the last matter, all of them instantly became insignificant. Besides the things that I've told all of you, there is still one more thing. The old man who had returned from the barren lands of divine essence was silent for a moment. Fear appeared in his eyes, along with shock that made him look as if he still did not believe in what he'd heard. His breathing quickened slightly before he spoke again. The forces of power from true sacred Yin world stationed in the barren lands of divine essence were destroyed. All the cultivators in that camp died in a sea of fire. Almost all the almighties in Mastery Realm died. Only the almighty in Life Realm from true sacred Yin world acting as a garrison in the barren lands of divine essence survived. But he did so only because that person who destroyed the world did not want to kill him. If he had wanted to, then even that almighty in Life Realm would have died a tragic death on the spot. His form and soul would have been destroyed. All of you do not know about this just yet, but before long, this matter will shock all four great true worlds. Right now, true sacred Yin world is already seething in rage. This is something that has never happened before. Right now, there is practically no one among the forces of power stationed in the barren lands of divine essence who does not know about this matter. It has already spread to all the other true worlds through every channel of communication. Right now, the forces of power from true sacred Yin world no longer exist in the barren lands of divine essence. The old man's voice shuddered. When he spoke, there was deep fear in his eyes. Clearly, the scene he saw with his eyes in the barren lands of divine essence had been deeply ingrained in his memories, and it became something that could not be wiped from his mind. Once he said those words, the area did not immediately fall into silence. Instead, slowly and gradually, the 10 million cultivators fell silent. Their expressions changed drastically, and the sounds of them taking in sharp breaths rose and fell before eventually going silent. The place went as quiet as death itself. The shock brought by this news surpassed everyone's imagination, causing all the people to be unable to accept what they'd heard. As they tried to imagine this based on the old man's words, they saw a place in which a force of power from a true world served as garrison with an almighty in-life realm. They also saw a true world that could fight back even if the alien races invaded en masse. If there was enough time, it would even find itself with reinforcements coming to its aid. Yet now, that place was destroyed. There was only one possibility for this to happen: someone had to have attacked the place with such power and speed that even those from true sacred Yin world were unable to come assist the camp. And just like that, a force of power acting as garrison in the barren lands of divine essence was reduced to smithereens with a bang. Could it be that the alien races have invaded? Are we going to go through another great war against divine essence Star Ocean? What's going on? A true world garrison has been completely destroyed. This is. How could this be possible? If the alien races are invading en masse, then something would have happened to the camps from the other 3 true worlds, including true Morning Dao worlds. Could it really be that the alien races are about to wage war against us again? After a period of silence, a loud, rumbling uproar that surpassed all those that had happened before erupted in the area. The tanned old man's expression instantly changed. In front of him, the old Bei Bang sucked in a sharp breath. Which alien race was it? How many people did they deploy? How many tribes were sent out? Who was their commander? He asked without hesitation. This was such a huge matter that he had to report it to the Council of Sect Masters the moment he understood everything about it. This was definitely not something ordinary. If the alien races were about to wage war, it would be a huge matter that would involve all 4 great true worlds. Compared to this, even if Dao Kong displeased him, he could still push this matter back and deal with him later. But the moment he instinctively finished asking the questions, his heart let out a loud thump. His expression turned pale, because he had suddenly remembered that the person who had returned from the barren lands of divine essence was clearly talking about things concerning Dao Kong just now. The old man who had returned from the barren lands of divine essence cast Su Ming a terrified glance before his voice reverberated in the area. It has nothing to do with the alien races. It's not the alien races. There was only one person involved in the destruction of the camp from true sacred Yin world. A cultivator took away this person's belongings, but due to true sacred Yin world taking this cultivator's side, they eventually offended the person. He summoned the 5th kill, and in one go, he destroyed an entire camp from a true world. The old man's voice echoed through the area, and the expressions of everyone present instantly filled with utter shock and astonishment so great that it was like nothing they'd ever felt before. He destroyed an entire camp of a true world alone. Who is he? Is there such a powerful warrior in the universe? And isn't the 5th kill an item that has no master in divine essence Star Ocean? How could it? The 5th kill. At the instant the discussions rose in the area, there were quite a few sharp intakes of breath. The cultivators whose minds worked a little faster felt their hearts let out a thump at that moment as if it was the last thing they did. Those people turned their heads swiftly, and countless gazes gathered on Su Ming, who looked as indifferent as ever. The 9 dynasts in front of Su Ming sucked in sharp breaths at that moment. In shock, they moved backwards simultaneously, wanting to immediately leave Su Ming's side. That person is Dynast Dao Kong. The old man's final sentence caused the world to instantly fall into dead silence. It was almost maddening how quiet everyone became. At that moment, the old man knelt down towards Su Ming. Chapter 1085 Establishing Might. The instant the old man knelt down to worship Su Ming, the area instantly sank into dead silence again. All of the gazes gathered on Su Ming, and all of them were filled with utmost disbelief and shock, along with great astonishment. The people's minds had turned blank, and loud booms that surged into the sky rang in their heads. It was as if there was a sentence that was echoing non-stop in all the people's heads at that moment. That person is Dynast Dao Kong. Needless to say, It was this sentence which was echoing an infinite amount of times in everyone's head, forming loud booms that were like crackling thunder in the 10 million cultivators' minds. The old man's words, expressions, his trembling body, and the gaze that still had lingering fear in it were all proof that there was not a hint of deceit in his words. He had mentioned progenitor Long Hai and Reverend Zi Long from the fourth true world, and their presences made it difficult for anyone to dismiss his claims or call them exaggerations. But the more it was so, the greater shock the 10 million cultivators in the area felt. The tanned old man's face had turned pale at that moment. Even the mind of a powerful warrior like him had went blank. The scene of a single person destroying an entire camp from one of the true worlds kept repeating in his mind, and he could not stop it. The other two sect masters by his side were the same. As for Bei Bang, his breathing had become rushed. When he looked at Su Ming, his expression changed. For a time being, he found himself speechless. Right from the start, Su Ming's expression had been one of calmness. The camp from true sacred Yin world in the barren lands of divine essence had been destroyed, and this matter would spread to all four great true worlds without doubt. It was something Su Ming had prepared himself to face a long time ago. It did not matter to him even if this matter was publicized earlier than expected. However, the people who came from true sacred Yin world to the anointment ceremony might show up seething with rage. To Su Ming, it did not matter whether the others learned of this later or earlier. At that moment, when the entire area was enveloped in silence, Su Ming cast a glance before himself with an indifferent gaze. The 9 dynasts who had come to his platform were stark pale at that moment. All of them had dumbfounded expressions, as if they had yet to recover from their shock. After all, the things Su Ming had done were enough to shock and terrify all cultivators. The instant Su Ming cast his gaze on the 9 dynasts, they shuddered, feeling as if their skin was crawling. Su Ming had seemed like an ailing, injured elderly just a moment ago, but in the blink of an eye, he had turned into an ancient, ferocious spirit. This change was so great that the 9 people charged backwards simultaneously without any hesitation. Trembling, all they wanted was to leave the platform. "Didn't you want to challenge me? Why are you in such a hurry to leave?" Su Ming asked flatly. He took a step forward. When he was about to attack, the old Bei Bang's expression changed drastically. He moved forward, and with his power of life realm, he appeared on Su Ming's platform with a bang to stand between him and the 9 retreating dynasts. "Dynast Dao Kong, please do not be rash. It is forbidden for dynasts to fight against each other during the anointment ceremony." Once Bei Bang said those words, he felt slightly anguished in his heart. It wasn't hard to imagine that this Dao Kong would definitely regard him in contempt due to the matter just now, and he sighed. He too knew that he had been slightly biased just now. However, no matter what, he did not expect that Dao Kong would have become so powerful in the barren lands of divine essence. This manner of doing things was definitely not something that could be done by an ordinary cultivator. In fact, it would be difficult for even Bei Bang himself to do such a thing. Destroying an entire camp from a true world and taking everyone's lives. Bei Bang suddenly felt that there had to be an unimaginable number of vengeful souls surrounding Dao Kong. Su Ming cast a cold glance at the old Bei Bang before him. He did not say any contemptuous words Bei Bang was prepared to receive. Instead, he said, "If those 9 kneel down and shout my name 3 times, I will treat this as it had never happened." When Bei Bang heard his words, for some unknown reason, he let out a sigh of relief in his heart. Dao Kong gave him a fathomless feeling. Even if he looked as if he was heavily wounded at that moment, someone who could destroy an entire camp from a true world stationed in the barren lands of divine essence was definitely not someone who could be underestimated even when he was severely injured. It was especially so when he saw Dao Kong's calm gaze. At that moment, Bei Bang became even more cautious. He immediately turned around and swung his arm toward the 9 dynasts. "The 9 of you were the ones who broke the rules first. Kneel now." 5 of the 9 dynasts knelt down without any hesitation, shivering. 2 of the remaining 4 hesitated, but soon chose to kneel down and worship Su Ming as well. The remaining 2 were naturally Dao Lin and Dao Fa. Their expressions had twisted. Blood trickled out of the corners of Dao Lin's mouth, a telling sign that he had gritted his teeth so hard that he had crushed them. Without a single word, he lowered his head and knelt down. The humiliation he suffered shattered all of his pride. When he knelt down, he did not just show submission with his body. Even his soul, his honor, and his pride submitted. The last one standing was Dao Fa. The gentle look on the seemingly gentle-looking middle-aged man had long since disappeared and become sinister. He glared at Su Ming while standing with his back straight. Fa, kneel down. Apologize to Dynast Dao Kong. The tanned old man's expression changed. When he gave his command, he took a step forward, intending to head to the platform. Yet the moment he lifted his foot, Su Ming raised his right hand. The life inequity spear moved, and was flung with a bang. It flew in a long arc which charged towards Dao Fa. The instant he flung that life inequity spear forward, Su Ming spoke in an aloof manner. Ju Yu Cai. This was clearly a name, but no one understood why Su Ming had said it. Bei Bang lifted his right hand, but just as he was about to grab the life inequity spear Su Ming had thrown, his body trembled, and his lifted right hand froze in midair. A powerful sense of danger had risen in his heart. He could clearly feel a murderous intent coming from a distance and locking down on him. This was a divine sense belonging to someone who was clearly stronger than him and who had almost stepped into death realm. If he did anything rash, that person would definitely deliver an attack that would come charging at him like a lightning bolt. At that instant, Bei Bang thought of the words from the person who had returned from the barren lands of divine essence had said. Among his accomplishment, he'd mentioned Dao Kong having a person in life realm as his follower. When Bei Bang froze, the life inequity spear charged past him with a bang and rushed towards Dao Fa. The man roared, and the tanned old man charged forward, but his speed could not compare to the life inequity spears. When a loud bang that shook the skies reverberated in the air, the tanned old man let out a sorrowful cry towards the heavens. Dao Fa's body was torn to pieces. As blood splattered in all directions, his soul and nascent divinity were instantly torn as well. Once they were pierced by the life inequity spear, they were destroyed. All of this might have seemed to have happened over a long period of time, but in truth, it was over in an instant. Blood gushed in all directions and landed on the 8 dynasts who had chosen to kneel down. It made them shudder, and even Dao Lin's face turned pale and bloodless. Dao Kong, how dare you kill my Fa? The tanned old man's face twisted as he roared. He whipped his head around to glare at Su Ming, and a large amount of red appeared in his eyes. I won't just dare to kill your Fa. If you continue causing a ruckus, I will also dare to kill you right here and right now. You're just a cultivator in Fate Realm, so how dare you act arrogantly before me again and again? Su Ming's response to the tanned old man's roars was a string of calm words. They were like a bucket of cold water that had been poured over the old man's head. He trembled, and was forced to push down the raging anger in his heart. He remembered all that he had heard about Dao Kong in the barren lands of divine essence, and that he was a terrifying existence who could destroy an entire true world's garrison. He also recalled how Bei Bang had lifted his right hand as if he wanted to stop Dao Kong, but had frozen for a moment, and how his expression had changed. But the anger and sorrow in his heart was not something that he could suppress so easily. Yet when he saw Su Ming's aloof gaze once more, he forced down the killing intent which had risen in his heart. He suddenly came to the realization that if he attacked, it would be the same as him breaking the rules in the sect. Dao Kong could then have his follower kill him. The tanned old man coughed up a mouthful of blood. This was an internal injury caused by him forcing down the madness in his heart. This injury was not serious, but his heart was filled with outrage and sorrow at that moment, and this feeling was something that he had never sensed since he had become a sect master. Dynast Dao Kong. Dynast Dao Kong. Dynast Dao Kong. The 8 dynasts kneeling on the platform, including Dao Lin, all had their heads lowered as they said the 3 sentences toward Su Ming. Their dignity had been completely trampled. Their pride as dynasts was stomped under Su Ming's feet, and after a few vicious stomps, it was completely crushed. The grievances and humiliation from submission due to fear of death was even worse than death. But there were times when even if one knew that by kneeling they would no longer have any sort of prestige left, they could only kneel, swallowing down their humiliation to survive. This was also Su Ming's goal. He could accept not killing the 8, but he would then destroy their spirit of being dynasts in an unseen manner, and he had managed to do it. This was also something that the tanned old man had previously wished to do to him. When all the cultivators in the area saw this, Su Ming's might had instantly become as great as that of a storm. His might swept through the entire area and became the deepest memory etched into the minds of all the cultivators present. Senior Bei Bang, based on your previous words, please heal me. Su Ming's gaze was calm as he sat down on the lotus platform. When he closed his eyes, he circulated his cultivation base and sucked in a large amount of life force from the platform. Bei Bang's expression was dark, but the intimidating force was still locked on him. In silence, he sighed in his heart. Dao Kong did not pester him for not stopping the challenge from the other dynasts, which was already allowing him to avoid humiliation. As he sighed to himself, he had his cultivation base spread out from his body, and the life force Su Ming could absorb instantly became greater.